Let's get into soul snacks.
Yes,
so you
sir.
have about 15 different irresistible flavors with roots stemming from your grandmother. Just talk about your grandmother, Leola, and the joys of being a grandson / taste tester as a kid.
When I was coming up, my grandmother, Grampy, we used to call her, either Grampy or Gramps, we called her, lived with my Aunt Gloria. And Aunt Gloria had a son, as my first cousin, Vincent. We were the only two boys. Everybody, it was all girls. Because my brother Howie, as I told you, he was off with his girlfriend, so we didn't see much of him. But he did spend a lot of time with my grandmother on the personal side. He would go out there and sit with her, and they had a great relationship. But my grandmother was, like many grandmothers, she was a very strong person that came from some very humble Southern roots that saw things that you and I have probably or may not ever see in our entire lives. And that was one of the reasons why so many people moved north to get away from the Southern way of life, I should say. So she was a very religious woman. My grandmother always had WWRL playing with gospel all the time. Anytime the gospel show was on, we had the show called Gospel Time, and that show would be on, and it would be half tuned in, but she would be humming along to the songs on the radio. And when she would go in the kitchen and cook, it was something good was about to happen. So me and my cousin Vincent were so small, we would have to sit on the telephone books and at the table. And when she finished mixing her bowl or her batter, she would give it to me and him. And we had the pleasure of taking our finger and getting all of that good stuff out of that bowl. And I remember that feeling and that taste and the smell. And that was something that I gravitated towards as a young person. As I mentioned, I didn't grow up with it. My father was never at home the whole time I grew up. My brother was there, but then when he left, I was around my grandmother, my aunts, my cousin Vincent before he moved to California, my sisters. So it was a big female influence in my life, which ended up being an incredible thing. I learned a lot about just things that many young people don't get a chance to pay attention to, like cooking. My mother actually taught me how to sew. She taught me how to knit. Many things around the house that are supposed to be traditionally female, I learned. And one of the things I love baking. I love to cook. I love the results of being able to cook and being a shy kid. After my grandmother and my mother teaching me how to do these things, I used to bake for girls in my neighborhood because I was shy. And I would give them like cookies and stuff like that. And they would go, "Oh, that is so nice." And that was my opener. That was my icebreaker because I had zero rap. I was a nerd.
Uh-huh.
I was a smart kid in school. I got skipped from 7th to 9th grade. And growing up in the projects, being a nerd is not a healthy, blend. But it was just who I was. My brother was exactly the same way. He's a very, very intelligent man. So that's how, the influence from my mother and my grandmother just happened to just stay with me